We're back here at Boom and Bust here with Jerome Gessaroli. Jerome, you were just talking about the $50 a ton, carbon pricing, I guess, with the federal government. So please continue with your explanation as to why government subsidies for electric vehicles is not cost effective.
Okay, so as I mentioned just previously, the federal government, their program alone, it costs about $350 to reduce 1 ton of carbon through this incentive program. And if the federal government prices carbon at $50 per ton, well, we're spending $350 in order to save $50.
Yeah.
And I think most people would realize that that's not a very good deal.
So now the other part of your argument has been that this subsidy for electric vehicles basically favors people who already have means. So I guess my question to you is, who is buying electric vehicles in Canada, who's benefiting from the subsidy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Primarily, it's middle to upper income households that are purchasing the electric vehicles, and we're not talking necessarily the fancy Teslas either. Mm-hmm. There was one survey done, I believe it was an American survey, but I think we found similar results in Canada, that somebody a household who purchased a Ford Focus electric vehicle, their average household income was about $200,000. Mm. So we're not talking the fancy electric vehicles here, but right. They are expensive. They cost anywhere between $12,000 to $25,000 more compared to the equivalent gas-powered vehicle.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's move. We've kind of described what government intervention in the marketplace is doing and who's benefiting, and I get that, and what the cost of that is. So I guess the question is, in contrast, how should the marketplace react to greater demand for electric vehicles? And take us through that journey a little bit.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think that there's a good case to be made that we should let the marketplace do its thing. And there's a couple reasons behind this. First of all, the manufacturers are starting to scale up production. So they're going to be getting additional scale economies that lowers the cost of the EVs. They're also introducing new technologies to lower the cost of the EVs. So there's two elements there that are going to make EVs more widely available. But we can even add to that. Electric vehicles, they have fewer moving parts, and therefore they have lower maintenance costs over their lives. And the fuel costs are, generally much lower than combustion engines. And then finally, electric vehicles have higher rates of depreciation. Mm-hmm. So if we put all those together, it will not be long before we achieve cost parity between an electric vehicle and a regular internal combustion engine vehicle.
How far away are we from that now, do you think?
Well, this is an estimate, but from what we see, it's anywhere between 2025 to 2030 that the rough cost parity could be reached, and at that point, it can become quite cost effective for lower medium households to purchase an EV, especially if it was for a second car.
I see what you're saying. So that could be a bit of a tipping point for households of lesser means to get into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can also make a case for the charging station and the infrastructure around that. Let's keep in mind that when cars were introduced way back when, there were no gas stations around. Mm. Well, the market reacted and it developed a whole network of gas stations to fuel the vehicles. And we see that happening right now. We see Tesla's got a very significant network of charging stations, and GM, Mercedes, Volkswagen, BMW, they're all investing in charging stations. So the market is reacting. So money that the government's giving to subsidize charging stations is also quite questionable, especially when companies, for-profit corporations, are eligible for these subsidies. It's great that companies want to add charging stations to their buildings.
Right.
I encourage them to do that. I'm just not quite sure why payers have to foot a part of the bill.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, we're going to continue our discussion with Jerome Gessaroli. He is a visiting fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute in Ottawa, talking all things electric vehicles and the subsidies that go along with that. We'll continue our discussion after this break. Please stay with us.